Good morning, friends. Welcome to the 16th weekly lecture of our program Samachar Manthan. This week and next week, there will be a lot of topics, a lot of important topics for mains because Deepak Mishra is retiring, and before retirement, he is giving some landmark judgments in different things. So those things I will cover next week because this is not in the mandate of this week. But this week also there have been a lot of important news. So we'll start with the first most important news, which is the launch of Ayushman Bharat scheme. So you must have read a lot about Ayushman Bharat scheme. You must be aware of the key features and all. My focus would not be on explaining key features, but my focus would be on explaining the significance, the important areas, and the challenges which will take place or which will be there in implementing the scheme, and the solutions we require to ensure that Ayushman Bharat scheme becomes a success. So let us start with the key feature of the scheme. So Ayushman Bharat, as you know, in India we have two sectors: primary health sector and the secondary health sector, secondary and tertiary. So for primary health care, it means that if you have common cold, if you have stomach upset, you go to a proper small dispensary where you get yourself treated. In secondary and tertiary, when you have big diseases like dengue, like heart, like cancer, all these big diseases, when you go to the secondary and tertiary sector. In India, the primary sector is really bad. Most of them are in small areas. You have no doctors there. I can tell you about my village. In my village, in the primary healthcare center, there is the what you call as Hakim of the village. He sits as a doctor. He has no degree, but he treats everyone with everything. So, and I think it's the same in most of the villages. That primary healthcare sector is really bad in India. Secondary and tertiary care sector, it depends. So there are some private hospitals which are really expensive, but they treat you well. Then there's government hospitals where the treatment is really bad. So Ayushman scheme will focus on both primary and tertiary, because see, the primary healthcare sector is very important, because if you don't treat them in the initial stages, their case would then go to secondary and tertiary care, and that is expensive. So if you want to reduce the health expenditure in India, you have to strengthen the primary healthcare sector. That is what the experts are saying, and that is also common sense. So for primary and healthcare sector, Ayushman Bharat scheme has health and wellness centers. So there would be 150,000 health and wellness centers which will be established in cities and in villages, and that will be the first area of interaction. I mean, if you have small problem, you go to the health and wellness sector, and the idea under the scheme is that they will be revamped. So this is technically nothing but what you call as primary healthcare center. They would be revamped, infrastructure would be improved, there will be better doctors there. They would be it will ensure that there is proper doctor and nurse and a team in that health and wellness centers. For the other people, for secondary and tertiary healthcare sector, it talks of insurance. So anybody who has a major disease, they can get himself admitted in the hospitals, and the government will pay the government will pay the premium or anything. If it's a trust model, government will bear the cost for the treatment. So you have health and wellness center for the primary health care, and you have insurance for the secondary sector. So now let's look at the significance of the scheme. Also, under the scheme, those secondary and tertiary centers which will provide a very high quality of healthcare, they will get 10% more payment from the government. So idea is to allow these hospitals to give, because ultimately when they think that it's insurance model, we will not provide any service, ultimately government will pay us the same amount. But if they would be provided incentive that if you give us a better service, and they have to be accredited with NABH. So NABH is just like a NAC. You in education sector you have NAC, NAAC, which gives this certificate to institutes A plus A, B plus B. In the same way, all the hospitals will be accredited with NAB, NABH, and they will give certificates to all these hospitals A plus A, B plus. So all these A plus hospitals, they would be given 10% extra, what you call 10% extra compensation for treating the patients. So let us understand the significance of the scheme. So first significance would be that it is the world's largest government funded program. So it is much bigger than Obamacare. It is much bigger than Merkel Care. It is called as Modi Care, and it nowhere in the world 50 crore people would be given free healthcare by the government, because ultimately it's possible. It's not possible anywhere else except China probably, because nobody has 50%, or no country has 50 crore of population. Second significance of the scheme is that it incentivizes good performance. Like what I have told earlier, that the hospitals performing well will get more kind of compensation. Third is that it will create awareness about health insurance. So just like what Jandhan was able to do for financial literacy, this will work in terms of health literacy, because as you know, in India, the data says that around 85% rural households and 82% urban households, they don't have any insurance. That is why we need this Ayushman Bharat scheme. And the government has earlier, the scheme was Rashtriya Swasthya Bima Yojana. This scheme covered all the people from the unorganized sector, but it just had a coverage of 18 crore people, and the maximum compensation which the government paid, or the health insurance that the government provided, was just 30,000 rupees. Ayushman Bharat will cover 50 crore people, and it will provide health insurance of 5 lakh rupees per family. So it's a significant improvement over the Rashtriya Swasthya Bima Yojana scheme. Next is it will generate jobs. So you need more healthcare workers, you need more doctors, more nurses, more compounders, all these things. It will create enough jobs in the economy, and healthcare sector is a very job intensive sector, so it can also solve the problem of the jobless growth that we face. Next is it will enhance productivity. So I have actually told this thing many times, that economy requires healthy workforce and educated workforce and skilled workforce. Without these, the workforce will not be productive. So this will ensure that the workforce is healthy in India, and since it will be healthy in India, it will somehow kind of increase the productivity. Next is it will reduce poverty in India, and that is very common, because one of the reason why we have more number of poor is because of the healthcare expenditure. Many families, if you see around, they sell their land, they sell their houses to get the near ones or the relatives treated, and it is one of the, and out of pocket expenditure is one of the main reason why we have this problem of poverty. Now let's come to the main point, which is challenges to Pradhan Mantri Ayushman Bharat scheme. First and most important challenge is mere allocation. So rupees 2000 crores have been allocated for Ayushman Bharat this year, and government is saying that we will increase the amount to 10,000 crores next year. But even 10,000 crores is very insufficient, because what experts are saying that you require at least 60 to 70,000 crores of money to fund this program, because you are insuring 50 crore people. 50 crore people, right? And there would be a lot of people who will use the insurance. If you have this much budget, then you will not pay the insurance. You will not provide compensation to the hospitals. You will not provide compensation to the insurance companies, and they will withdraw from the scheme. There will be no insurance company who will be willing to do that. There will be no hospital who would be willing to do anything. And in that case, what will happen? In that case, the poor will go to government hospital, because private hospital will say that government is not providing us compensation on time. We don't want to be part of the scheme. You cannot force it. It's not China. It's not North Korea. It's a democracy, right? You can't force the private sector to enroll in the scheme. They would think that we are not getting, paid right amount, and we are not getting the money on time. We don't want to be part of the scheme. The government is actually, even now also, it's free for the poor people. So ultimately it will have no benefit until and unless you provide enough funds for it. 2000 crore, even 10,000 crore is insufficient for it. Very insufficient. I mean, even the budget of Rashtriya Swasthya Bima Yojana was bigger than 2000, and you had just provided compensation for 30,000 rupees in that scheme, and you just covered 18 crore people in that scheme. In this scheme, you are covering 50 crore people, and you are providing 5 lakh rupees compensation to each of them. Next is, there is unknown financial cost of the program. So see, insurance companies require this probability. They require government should have created database, in which database they would have included all these experts. They would have used the proper model of insurance, and then they would have provided, okay, this much should be the premium which the insurance company wants from the government. Because if the insurance company will get this much premium, it will be able to insure 50 crore people. But no such calculation has been done. And without such calculation, insurance company they have not been able to come with the amount of premium required for insuring 50 crore people. And without that, this scheme would not work on the ground. Because without knowing the amount of premium, insurance companies will not agree for entering the scheme. Also, there is a risk of coverage erosion. So many experts are saying that because the fund allocated for this is so less, that what it will do is that it has happened in Thailand and one more or two other countries, that in such when such less money is allocated for the program, the hospitals will play smart. They will decide that, okay, these things are included, these things are not included, or in these things are included, but the visit of doctor is not included. So ultimately, because the hospitals have to sustain themselves, insurance companies have to sustain themselves, then they start playing some tricks, and when they start playing the tricks, it increases the out of pocket expenditure. You get admitted to hospital knowing that everything is free. Once you get admitted, you are shown with a place thing that okay, these things are free, but these things are not covered in your package. You have to pay for that. When you are dying, you agree for everything, right? So that would increase and the biggest objective of Ayushman Bharat scheme is to reduce the out of pocket expenditure. But if this will happen, then that will make the scheme unworkable and it will not be able to play the kind of impact it is, it's or what its objective is. Also, there are unviable treatment rates. So the draft package rates which are released, or the draft treatment package rates, they are the hospitals, the private hospitals don't seem happy for that, because the proposed cost for artery bypass is about 90,000 rupees, while the central government health scheme rate is 1.1 lakh rupees, and in private hospitals they charge 3 lakh rupees for this coronary artery bypass. So the private hospitals charge 3 lakh and you are paying them 90,000 rupees. It will have two outcomes. One is that they will not be willing to join all these Max and Apollos and the big hospitals, Fortises, they will not join the program, right? And if they join, they will probably give substandard treatment, because they know that they will get just 90,000 rupees from the government. So that will compromise with the healthcare provided to the patient. And if these people will not join it, then what is the use of the scheme? Because government के पास तो अभी भी hospital में free में ही होता है इलाज, right? Objective is that private hospitals will be empaneled under the scheme and this poor will be able to go to private hospitals for the treatment. Next is implementation failure. I mean, see, okay, secondary is fine, but for primary healthcare sector, you have changed the name to Health and Wellness Center, right? The condition that we have right now, there is no doctor there. There is no nurse here. You have to open more medical colleges. You will, because otherwise, if you will not completely revamp, and for that you will have to increase the budget of healthcare. Without increasing the budget of the healthcare, the health and wellness sector will not, change by itself. You will have to invest more in that. Only then health and wellness center will be able to, they will be able to revamp. And health and wellness center is a very important component of this program, because without health and wellness sector, there will be greater burden on secondary and tertiary care sector. And secondary and tertiary care sector, as the government is just giving 2,000 crores for that. Right, and government has said that it will give 1,200 crores for revamping health and wellness sector. 12,000 or 1,200 crores is nothing. In a country like India, it is nothing. So government should, without these, there will be implementation failure. The government the scheme would look very good on paper, but it would completely fail on the ground. Next is flaws of insurer and trust model. So usually in this, when there is bidding among the insurance companies about the low rates that they will provide, low premium they will charge, generally it has happened that it leads to unviable rates of premium. So in Nagaland, it happened recently, where because of competition among the insurance companies, the lowest the insurance company provided was 400 rupees premium per year. And that is unviable for an insurance company to sustain itself, right? If we go for a trust model in which we don't rely on insurance companies, We create a trust, the state government create a trust, and state government fills the money on the trust. The problem in trust model is that the trust model has been implemented in some states in India. But in that model, generally the hospitals are not happy with this model, because hospitals feel that there is a delay in providing compensation. So hospital will treat a patient and the cost of the treatment is 2 lakh rupees. Now state government does not release the amount on time. So probably, this 2 lakh rupees the hospital will get after 1 year. So hospitals are not, if they will be trust model, hospitals will not be very, they would not actually join, because they know that there is a delay of payment. It's proper bureaucratic structure, it's proper bureaucratic model that takes place. So that is why the hospitals are also not very happy. So how can we make Ayushman scheme a success? First is we should use the PPP model. See, as I've told you that you require more hospitals, you require more number of beds to treat the people, right? So, and the government cannot do it alone. It does not have the capacity to do it alone. So you have to come in terms with the PPP model, build more hospitals, create more kind of more beds, because currently there are 13.5 lakh beds in India, and you require at least 40 lakh beds in India to treat 50 crore people, and that cannot come, the government cannot provide them all. So government need to use the PPP model in building more hospitals, and in the hospitals which are already there, create more number of beds. Next is cooperative federalism is needed. See, ultimately health is a state subject, and state government has to implement the scheme on ground. So kind of states will need to take care, they need to be given some extra funds in the finance commission so that they can implement the scheme on the ground level. The South Indian states have the funds, but the problem lies with the Bimaru states. They have more prime priorities, like ambulance for cows, temple. Also they have very important priorities in their life, health and education. These are non-issues for them. So they will have to be convinced by the central government that okay, ambulance for cow can wait, and Ram Mandir can wait. You should first kind of focus on health and education, because your kids and your future generation is lying. And it's a fact that the social indicators in Bimaru states is worse than Africa, sub-Saharan Africa. It's a shame for me. I also belong to these states. It's a shame for us that we are not focusing on health and education, and we are focusing on other nonsense things. Next is we require more medical colleges. So for health and wellness sector, for new hospitals, for new beds, you require more doctors. For new patients, you require more doctors. In India, the doctor to patient ratio is or doctor to population ratio is very less compared to China and US, and this would increase it further. We require more doctors, so we need to create more medical colleges. We need to create more nursing colleges. We need to create more paramedical colleges, right? Next is more clarity and uniformity is needed. So more clarity is needed that what is included in the package and what is not included in the package, so that the insurance companies and hospitals don't exploit the poor patients, poor and illiterate patients. Also, we require a rate according to the kind of city. So in Delhi and in Bhilwara or in any other places in India, in small towns, the rate cannot be same, because you are paying doctor more in Delhi than you are paying in small city. So the rate of the treatment should be should take care of this thing, right? There should be no uniform rate in one city, or there's no uniform rate in India itself. Next is there is requirement of effective implementation and monitoring. So we need to create a separate wing in the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, and this would be an independent body which will plan, coordinate, and provide technical inputs to the state, including the capacity building. It will also monitor the program, and it will give advices based on monitoring that these are the flaws in the program and we can do these kinds of improvements. So we need a separate independent body for that. Ultimately, my take on this scheme is that, see, ultimately the government has to increase expenditure on health. We are spending 1.1% of GDP on health, which is one of the lowest in the world. So these schemes are good, but ultimately these schemes can only work when you at least triple the expenditure on health. At least 3% of your GDP should be spent on health. Only then schemes like this can work. Otherwise, it will not work on the ground. That is my perfect take on the scheme. Let's move to the next very important issue, which is sugarcane crisis. So you must have read in the newspapers about sugarcane farmers again protesting in Delhi. They are also forcing the government to look into their grievances and concerns. The sugar sector is one of the leading reasons why NPA is increasing, because all these mills are almost facing bankruptcy. So what is the sugarcane crisis, and what is the solution to this crisis? So the recent crisis of sugarcane is because of overproduction. And before we understand the recent crisis, let us first understand how pricing is done in the sugarcane sector. So as you know, just like rice and wheat, we have MSP for the sugarcane sector also, but that is not called as MSP, that is called as FRP, fair and remunerative price. And this fair and remunerative price is decided by the government of India on the advice of CACP, or Commission for Agriculture Cost and Production. Now, how is FRP decided? So FRP is decided on the basis of various factors like cost of production, domestic and international prices, overall demand supply situation, intercrop price parity, terms of trade prices of primary byproducts, and the impact of general price level. So this FRP is decided by the central government. Next is the SAP, or the state administered price. This is allocated, or this is decided by the state government. Now, when you talk of FRP, there is a pure logic how the price is arrived at. As I know, there are objective factors on the basis of which the price is arrived at. When you talk of state administered price, there is no logic here. The logic here is the pressure from the farmers. If the government believes that sugarcane farmers are a strong lobby, they have a strong vote bank, give them high MSPs. If they are weak, not give them high MSPs, and we will implement the FRP. So in most of the sugarcane producing states, we have a problem. We have, I mean, the price which is given to the farmers is SAP, or the state administered price, which is higher than the FRP. Now let's come to the sugar. When you talk of sugar, it is decided by the market mechanism. The price of a sugar is decided by the market mechanism. The government does not interfere in deciding the price of sugar. A problem क्या होती है? The problem is that because of very high SAP prices, thanks to populism and politics, it incentivizes the farmers to grow a lot of sugarcane, because they know that the government has decided high SAP will get more profit, grow more sugarcane. Even if there is no water availability, even though if there is no irrigation facility, we will grow that, right? So they grow lot of sugarcane, which leads to overproduction. Now the sugar industry people, when there is overproduction, what will happen to the price of sugar? The price of sugar would decrease. And since price of sugar decreases, but the sugar industry people, they have to pay SAP to the farmers. And the SAP price is very high. And because of high SAP price, and low sugar price, the people in the sugar industry, they face losses. By suppose the SAP price of sugar cane, which is a major input in producing sugar, is 30 rupees. Let's take an example, pragmatic example. And the price of sugar is 32 rupees. Now 30 rupees if we will pay to the sugarcane farmer, because this is the price decided by the state SAP, and he can sell sugar at 32 rupees. So he will just get 2 rupees of, it's not even profit, because sugarcane he buys, then he kind of transforms it, he runs machine, he pays the workers, he pays the electricity, he pays so many things, other things. If he has taken loan, he pays the interest rate to the banks, and he gets nothing. He gets the loss. His total cost of manufacturing sugar is 40 rupees. And he gets 32 rupees from the market. That's the market price, right? So that is why these it has two impacts. This high state administered price has two impacts. One impact is that it leads to overproduction, which depresses the market price of sugar. And second is that it makes our sugar cane, or it makes our sugar unviable for exports, because, or unviable, or what it is, uncompetitive for exports. Because the government in all other countries, our competitors like Brazil, like Cuba, like Vietnam, they are not as liberal as our government. They don't pay very high, because Cuba is like completely, it's a dictator state, so they don't want the votes of these sugarcane farmers. They can decide any price, and these farmers will kind of agree on that. So because of high sugarcane prices, the prices of sugarcane in India, the prices of sugar in India is also very high compared to the rest of the world. So it makes our sugar uncompetitive in comparison to the rest of the world. So the excess production, or the surplus production that we do here, we cannot even export outside. It has to be stored in India itself, because nobody will buy it, because it's expensive compared to the sugar from China or Cuba or Brazil. right? So this is the main problem. This is the problem of the crisis. This year also it has happened. This year also it has happened that the total production which these farmers did was it is 35.5 MMT, and the annual consumption is 26 MMT. So 9 MMT they have created surplus, and this has depressed the prices of sugar. And now sugar industry people are saying that we don't have money to pay the arrears of these sugarcane farmers. So they are saying that if we will pay the arrears to them, we will pay the SAP amount to them, we will go bankrupt. We are already facing so much loss, we don't have the money. So sugarcane farmers are also worried because they are not getting the area. They have sold these sugarcane to these sugar mill owners, but they are not getting payment for that because the head of sugar industry, the mill people, they are saying that we don't have money to pay. Sugarcane farmers saying we are not getting the payment. How will we feed our children? So they are also protesting. So both the sugarcane farmers and the sugar industry are protesting against against this problem. Now 2-3 months back, the government released the package for the industry. According to this package, there will be more buffer stock which will be created. Also, the MSP price of sugar was decided. It was decided to be 29 rupees. But 29 rupees is very low because the market price of sugar is more than that. And the costing of sugar industry people is around 35 rupees. So this MSP is actually, it's worthless. It will not impact the condition of the people from the sugar industry. A problem ये हो गई है. The other problem is that this crisis is there, that there is global overproduction everywhere in the world. So global sugar prices have been depressed completely. So we cannot export. What will happen to this 9 MMT which is surplus? That is a problem, because we cannot export because prices are very low outside, and we don't have enough buffers, we don't have enough storage facility to store these excess 9 MMT. So here lies the problem. So how will or what are the policy options that we have for the sugar sector? Let's understand that. So first is we can do our trade policy thing. So because of cheap exports or because of cheap prices everywhere in the world, India is actually India got import of sugar, or there was import of sugar to India because prices in outside world is very cheap. So to prevent that, what government did is the government imposed a import duty of 100%. So that at least, okay, we are not able to export, it's fine, but at least there should be no import to India because we have so much surplus overproduction. What will happen to that? That is a problem. Next option that we have is, so these are the options that we have, and then experts are saying that this is the best option that should be implemented on ground. Next option is that we should export the surplus sugar. Now this is also not feasible because, as I know, the prices have been very low outside and rupee has to fall to at least 80 in order for us to make our exports cheaper. So unless and until the rupee does not fall at 80, it's not an option for India to look for export as a savior. Third is we can create a large buffer stock. This is a good option and government has given money for that, but ultimately government will have to subsidize the people from the sugar industry to create enough buffer stock, because they are already in so much debt, so they don't have enough money to create or to build new storage facilities. Next is divert cane to ethanol. This is actually a good and feasible option. If you divert cane to ethanol, then you can get good price for ethanol. If the farmers can get MSP for both sugarcane and molasses, then it will also keep the farmers happy. If the sugar industry people, along with creating sugar, if they also start producing ethanol, their risk will also be diversified. They will earn income from two sources. So this could be a feasible option according to Ashok Gulati, who is probably the best agriculture economist in India. And last and the most feasible is the revenue sharing formula. So this was recommended by Rangarajan Committee on Sugarcane in 2012. So according to this formula, SAP will be dismantled. There would be no freedom which will be given to the state government to decide the price of the sugarcane. FRP would be there, but it would be reduced. So according to this revenue sharing formula, the farmers will get money during two periods in a year. First time they will get money when they will sell their sugarcane to the industry people. So when they will sell the sugarcane, they will get some money, some initial money, which we call as FRP, fair and remunerative price. The next lot or the next installment of money they will get at the end of the year based on the revenue generated by the people from the based on the revenue generated by that sugar mill. So 70% of the total revenue which is generated by that sugar mill, it has to be shared with the farmers. So this is good for farmers also because they will get more money. It is good for the sugar mill industry people also because they don't have to pay everything in one go. They pay little now, and when they will get revenue, they will share the revenue. So if the revenue is 1000 crore, it will share 700 crores with the farmers. So this will reduce the burden both on sugar mill and the farmers. So this is considered as the most feasible way to solve the sugarcane crisis. And government has said that it is looking into this revenue sharing formula. Actually, some state like Tamil Nadu has also implemented that formula. So in most probably this is the best way to solve this crisis. Let's move to the next issue, which is the consolidation of banks. So why this was the news? Because recently government has said, a union finance minister has decided that Bank of Baroda, Vijay Bank and Dena Bank, they will be merged into a single entity, or they will merge into a single bank. And once they will be united as one bank, it would be the third biggest bank in India. So what are the advantages of this merger? Let us look into that. So first advantage is that all public banks are doing the same stuff. Ultimately, whether it's PNB, whether it's Bank of Baroda, whether it's Dena, whether it's Vijay, they all are, they have same customers, they have same target group, and in all of these banks, the dominant shareholder is the government. So why to have 10 different banks when they are doing the same stuff? Why not have one when the dominant shareholder is one, only the government? It's better than we should have one bank rather than having 10 different banks and kind of competing from for the same kind of customer. There is no logic behind having so many small banks. There should be one big bank if the dominant shareholder in all these banks and the area of focus of all these banks are similar. So the area of focus of all these three banks were similar. That is why there is a rationale that they should be merged. Second very important advantage would be, or rationale would be, economies of scale. Now, this is a concept in economics. So if you why do these Walmarts and these big bazaars, they sell the prices at a very low rate? What's the reason why they are able to provide that and those kind of things? The normal kirana shop would be able to provide it for 50 rupees, and these big bazaars and Walmart, they provide 40 rupees. Why did this happens? Because they work at a large scale, right? They work at a large scale. That is why they are able to procure that goods in bulk. And when you procure the goods in bulk, you get discount. And because of discount, you are able to give more discount to the customers. Same happens when you talk of factory, right? If there is one factory, there will be initial cost, right? There will be initial cost of taking a factory and all. But once a factory has been built, once a initial cost have been established, then for producing more, you don't require much cost, because ultimately you will have to install more machines. More machine you will install, you will get more production. So the economies of scale concept says that when your production increases, the average cost decreases. And the reason being, because the fixed cost remains the same. So this is the concept of economies of scale. This would imply in banking sector also. Since they would be operating at a larger level, their average cost would decline. And since their average cost would decline, it will make them more profitable, and also it will be able to compete with the global banks of the world, because banks in India are very low. Even SBI is not in top 50 largest banks in the world. And because the Indian banks operate at a low level, they are not able to raise the money. Next is, it will lead to rise in customer base. This is again, when there will be three banks, there will be more customer, they have networks, they have strengths, so that will increase the customer base for the banks. This will also increase the market reach of these banks. Next, it will will benefit the MSME, because Dana Bank has a strength in MSME. So the overall merged bank will be in a better position to serve the MSME sector, and we require MSME sector for jobs. Next is it will increase the capital efficiency. See, you are able to raise more capital when your balance sheet has a lot of money. And in India, because of weak balance sheet, the banks are not able to they are not able to raise enough capital. And since they are not able to raise enough capital, they are not able to, or they are providing loans at a very high interest rate. So once there will be a big bank after this merger, this will increase the capital efficiency of the bank. They will be able to raise more capital, and ultimately the beneficiary would be the industry people, because they will get loan at a cheaper cost. And lastly, it would decrease NPA. This is because, in India, I've told this many times, I've explained it, that we have joint lenders forum, and these joint lenders forum decide what should be done with a company that has gone bankrupt. Now in joint lenders forum, there is Dana Bank, Vijay Bank, so many small banks which are there, all have a different opinion. And that is why the solution, how to solve the problem is, this is not solved. Once there will be few banks, the decision making process would be faster, and once the decision making process will be faster, all of the banks will be able to get the money back, and since they will be able to get the money back, it will decrease the NPA problem. Now let's look at the other thing, which is challenges. The first challenge will be the profitability issue. So since Dana Bank has a high NPA problem, Bank of Baroda and Vijay Bank don't have any problem. So the loan or the loss of Dana Bank would also be transferred to Bank of Baroda and Vijay Bank, and overall the merged bank that will be created, it will be weaker than the individual bank, because it will have a more NPA problem. I mean, see, this is the problem, that when you merge weak banks with strong banks, that this is a problem that it creates, that weak bank also drags the growth of the strong bank. Second is corporate governance issue. Now this is because, as you know, that this is not something which is done by the bank. This is done by the dominant shareholder. The dominant shareholder here is the government, but you have also the minor shareholders. But in this case, the minor shareholders, they are not even asked that we are doing this thing. They are just told that we will be merging the bank. So it is against the norms of corporate governance, where you have to take into confidence even the minute, even the small shareholder. But in this case, it's like a big brother thing, that government decided that we will do it. Rest 30% shareholders who are minor shareholders, we will not ask you what you want. So this goes against the norms of corporate governance. And secondly, it's a forced merger. All these three bank CEOs did not met together and decided that we will merge together. It's a government which is deciding. And we have seen the experience that forced mergers have never yielded successful results. Not in India, anywhere in the world. Next is there is a workforce trouble. So they will be, since Bank of Baroda has hired a lot of people from private sector at the high ranks, and there will be a lot of higher executives, there will be problem of this, that who will get what post, because ultimately even the higher executives of Dana and Vijay Bank, they will also go for the high post. They said if I was director in that bank, I will remain director in this bank. You cannot. And if there are just two vacancies there and there are three people who were directors earlier, what will happen to that? So it will create some dispute problem. Also, there is a problem of labor union. The labor union is not happy with the decision, so it's also not easy to make them agree. So all those things, problems are there. So this ends the third issue of the week, which is consolidation of banks. Let's move to the next topic, which is Afghanistan issue, which is in news because recently Ashraf Ghani visited India. So I will not exactly deal with India-Afghanistan relations in this topic. I will deal with the basics of the Afghanistan problem and who are the key players and what are the stand they have in with respect to Afghanistan problem. The idea is that when you read any op-ed further in the related to Afghanistan, you will better understand the root causes. You will better understand the crux of that op-ed, because Afghanistan is a very, very important issue in the international relations. So let's start with Afghanistan as a kind of a country. So Afghanistan this is Afghanistan. If I don't have the map exactly, this is Afghanistan. This is Pakistan. This is Central Asia and Iran, and at the top is China, and somewhere is India. So Afghanistan is considered as a graveyard for the most powerful powers in the world. The British lost there in 19th century. The Soviets lost there in 80s. And the US lost US is fighting it is having a hard time from last 15 years. So let's start with the ethnic groups in Afghanistan, because without knowing about the ethnic groups and their support and their thing, you will not be able to understand the future things. So Afghanistan mainly has three main dominant ethnic groups. The biggest is the Pashtuns, which is close to 40%. And most of the rulers of Afghanistan, the presidents, they belong to this dominant community. Second is Tajiks, who are around 25 to 27%. Actually, the Taliban is composed mostly of Pashtuns. Not mostly, exactly, almost fully of Pashtuns. And Tajiks, they had a leader called Ahmad Shah Massoud, who was actually even the India. So during the Taliban rule in Afghanistan, the Ahmad Shah Massoud's Northern Alliance was fighting against the Taliban, and Northern Alliance had support of India and Iran. Why is Iran so against Taliban? Because Iran is Shia and Taliban is a hardliner Sunni group. So India and Iran, we were supporting Ahmad Shah Massoud's Northern Alliance during the Taliban period. But Ahmad Shah Massoud died on 9th September 2011, 9th September 2001, just 2 days before the twin blast. So their political party is now weakened. Third is Hazaras. Hazaras are around 20%. And they are actually Shia Muslims. And because of being Shia Muslim in a Sunni majority country, they have been persecuted from a long time. I mean, the Taliban's persecuted them because, see, Hazaras have a Mongolite features. So if you see Afghani with a Mongolite face, it means he is a Hazara. He or she is a Hazara. So because of the Mongolite face, they were easily identified that they were Hazaras. And once they were identified, they were, it was easy for the terrorist group or a tribal group to kill them. So, and the rest of them are Uzbek, Turkmen, Kyrgyz, and other tribal groups. They are small. Mostly there are three main groups in Afghanistan. Now, once you understand this, let us understand the root cause of the problem in Afghanistan. The root cause is not from 2001. The root cause was from 1979. In 1979, the Soviets invaded Afghanistan. And when they invaded Afghanistan, they installed a communist government led by Afghanis in Afghanistan. And Afghanistan played they marched very forward in health, education, in women rights. So if you see the photos of 80s Afghanistan, you will see women wearing short skirts. They are free. They have no other thing, and they were very much westernized. So in early 80s, 81, 82, US, and this was the period of Cold War. So US became very concerned with Afghanistan falling in Soviet trap, because Afghanistan was at a very strategic location. So the US people planned with two other groups, Saudi Arabia and Pakistan. Both of them were afraid of a communist Afghanistan, because Saudi Arabia was the leader of Sunni world. They believed that these atheist communists have taken over a Islamic country. Pakistan, because Pakistan was the ally of US at that time, and since Afghanistan was more communist, and as you know, India always had good relations with the left-wing forces. So it became concerned that Afghanistan, the India's influence in Afghanistan would increase, and we would lose a kind of a friendly country. So they started training the Mujahideens. Mujahideens are those people who are considered as holy warrior. They were the tribal warlords who were against the communist Afghan government, because as you know, they were atheists, and naturally these were hardliner Sunni groups who were against the thing. So USA, give them Saudi Arabia and Pakistan. In Pakistan, there was this person called Hamid Gul, and Hamid Gul is considered as the father of modern day terrorism. He was the head of ISI at that time. They planned a group that we will give them funds, we will give them Kalashnikovs, we will give them money, we will give them resources to fight a proxy war against the communist government. And some of the people who were part of these Mujahideens were Osama bin Laden, Mullah Umar, Haqqani network, or Jalauddin Haqqani, who died recently, and other hardliner groups. So their army boasted with the pump of money and arms, and they started fighting a war against the communist Afghanistan. And by the end of 80s, the Soviets thought that, because as you know, the Soviet economy was really weak in 80s. Soviet thought that we cannot afford this expensive war, we are going out. So Soviet Union withdrew their forces. And once they withdrew their forces, the communist government in Afghanistan, their main backing was the Soviet Union. Once they withdrew, within 2-3 years, the government, the Afghan government, the communist Afghan government fell, and these Mujahideens came to power. And by 1996, so once these Mujahideens came to power in 1993, 1992, they stopped listening to US and Pakistan and Saudi Arabia, and they started fighting among each other, that we want to be in power, because they had their differences. The differences were not brought in the forefront during the Soviet period, because they thought that they are the bigger enemy, we have to fight that. So when they stopped listening, Pakistan thought that we have a very good opportunity to ally with one of these tribal groups, train them, and try them, and try to try our best to ensure that they come to power. So one of the groups was Taliban. So Pakistan nurtured and trained these Taliban groups, strengthened them with arms and training, and finally these Taliban came to power in Afghanistan in 1996. So the initial funding of creation of Taliban could be, the initial reason could be USA and Saudi Arabia and Pakistan, but the main reason why Taliban kind of was created and strengthened, the main backing force behind Taliban was Pakistan. So by 1996, Taliban came to power, and rest is history, we know, right? It started, and only two countries in the world recognized Taliban, Pakistan and Saudi Arabia. So this is the history of how the Taliban got stranded in Afghanistan, because all the articles which you read is related to this. If you don't know this backdrop, you will not be able to understand any op-ed on Afghanistan. 96, Taliban came to power. It ruled for 5 years. 2001, as you know, that US kind of attacked Afghanistan. Taliban got defeated, and government of Hamid Karzai was installed to power. After 10 years, because they have a rule of 10 years, Ashraf Ghani is now in power, who is also a Pashtun like Hamid Karzai. Now, why Afghanistan is in so much news recently? Because Taliban is trending. Taliban is trending. And because Taliban is trending, it is creating alarm bells among all the countries in the region and the US. So let us understand the key players in Afghanistan and what they want actually. So first key player is USA. USA created, 2001, USA is the one who started this kind of problem. So Obama's policy was that we will train the Afghan army and then we will leave, because we don't want to be in the mess anymore. We will leave. Trump came to power. Trump wants Trump's policy is that we want an honorable exit from Afghanistan. Which means what we will first do is that there is no timeline. So if it takes 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, 15 years, it does not matter. We will not leave till we ensure that, after we leave, things will be stabilized in Afghanistan. When we will be sure of that, then we will leave. Next is, and the other policy of Trump is not to trust Pakistan blindly. Because it knows that Pakistan has it has played a double game, taking funds for us and not doing anything. Third is that we cannot ignore Pakistan. Because ultimately all its supplies goes through Pakistan. So Pakistan has to be taken in boat. And fourth is talking with Taliban. So the current status is that in 30% of the area, Taliban is in control. So it knows that it's very difficult to defeat Taliban completely. Fourth is to talk with Taliban. At least talk with the moderate faction of Taliban. Now let's look at the other player, and the most important player, I would say, in Afghanistan, which is Pakistan. What does Pakistan want? So Pakistan and Afghanistan have same relations like India and Nepal. Pakistan has, so there's a group called Pashtuns, right? What you call is Pathan. Pashtun population is equally divided between Pakistan and Afghanistan. So Northwest Frontier Province area, most of them are Pashtuns. Across the border, they are the same. They get married. Like we in Nepal, we have in the Bihar and Madhesh region, we have relationship of Jar and Joru. We get married to each other. We have kinship relations with each other. Same happens in Afghanistan. There are some tribes which are divided between both these boundaries. So one tribe, half people live in Afghanistan, half of them live in Pakistan. And also Pakistan created Taliban, which ruled in Afghanistan. So Pakistan has three main issues. First issue is that Pakistan wants Afghanistan to remain weak. It is in the self-interest of Pakistan that Afghanistan remains weak, because a weak Afghanistan means that the role of or the interference of Pakistan and Afghanistan would be more. A strong Afghanistan would mean that they will not give much importance to Pakistan. Also, see, there is a long struggle movement of Pashtunistan, which means to create a single state for Pashtun people. Pakistan is apprehensive about that. That if Afghanistan would be stable, next demand of them would be to create a Pashtunistan, and there is a very good demand in Pakistan also. A lot of Pashtun in Pakistan wants an independent Pashtunistan. So they also want, the Pakistani people want that Afghanistan remains weak, so that nobody could give focus to this movement of Pashtunistan. Third is Pakistan divides Taliban into two: good Taliban and bad Taliban. So after 2001, when US started bombing Afghanistan, many of these Taliban people, they came to Pakistan. They were forced to leave Afghanistan and come to Pakistan. When they come to Pakistan, they started a war against Pakistan. As you know, that Benazir Bhutto was killed by a Taliban group, Hakimullah Masood. So there are two types of Pakistan. There are two types of Taliban. One is Afghan Taliban, and second is Pakistan Taliban. Pakistan believes that Pakistan Taliban is bad Taliban because it is fighting a war against Pakistan itself. We don't need to talk with them, we have to kill them. But the Afghan Taliban are good Taliban. They are Islamic fundamentalists, but they are, we can talk with them. They are not very violent people. We can talk with them. So Pakistan is pressurizing US and other countries like China to talk with the good Taliban people and have a kind of a joint government in Afghanistan where Taliban would also be in power along with the other groups. Now, other concern of Pakistan and India is that since 2001, India have invested heavily in Pakistan, and Afghanistan people like India a lot. Afghanistan government likes India a lot. So it wants an arrangement in Afghanistan where Taliban would also be a partner in the governance. They don't want a full-fledged Taliban rule in Afghanistan, because they have seen that once Taliban gets full power, they start ignoring Pakistan. So Pakistan wants a joint government in Afghanistan where Taliban would also have a share in the governance process. So it could be like Prime Minister could be from other party, President could be from Taliban, kind of a power sharing agreement. It wants that in Pakistan. It wants that in Afghanistan. And for that, its main concern is that Taliban has to be mainstreamed. And that is why it is pressurizing US and other countries to talk with the good faction, or what it calls a good faction of Taliban. Next is India. So India, as you know, has invested greatly in last 10 years. We have invested $3 billion We are building roads, we are building dams, we are building parliaments, we are training the people, we are enhancing the capacity building of Afghanistan, but we are not involved in the geopolitics of Afghanistan. The Afghanistani army have again and again demanded that we should give some arms to Afghanistan. We have not agreed. We believe that we will train your army, but we will not give you the arms. So politically, we are not very much, involved in Afghanistan. Economically, we are very much involved. That is why India has very strong soft power in Afghanistan. The Afghanis like India much. They really like Indians because India is not exploiting them. India is doing the what you call is the benevolent work there. Building dams and roads and all of those things. So India has kept a very low political profile in Afghanistan. Now Trump and other Western countries are pressurizing India to get more actively involved in Afghanistan because they actually want to leave Afghanistan as soon as possible and they have no faith in Pakistan. So they believe India being the other strong force in the region, we should take some responsibility in ensuring security of Afghanistan. But other sides of experts are saying that we should not get securely involved in Afghanistan because it would create a strong negative reaction from Pakistan, and Afghanistan would then become a proxy war center for India and Pakistan. Right, that would hurt Afghanis the most. And secondly, it would also somehow concern China. It could also draw a negative reaction from China. But other kind of thing is that if a Taliban government comes in Afghanistan, it's a problem for us because then they would support insurgency in Kashmir and etc. So we want a status quo. We want this government, the Ashraf Ghani government in Afghanistan, to be strengthened. That is our interest in Afghanistan. Next is China. China, as you know, is a full-time what you call as businessman, mania. So China, first concern for China is economy. China's dream project is One Belt, One Road project, and it will go through Afghanistan and other Central Asian countries. So China's main concern is that there should be stability in Afghanistan so that our dream project One Belt, One Road becomes a success. So that is why China is even willing to engage with Taliban. It is trying to give some money to Taliban to ensure that the safety of One Belt, One Road is maintained. So first concern of China is One Belt, One Road. Security concern of China is with respect to Uyghurs. Because if a Taliban government comes to power in Afghanistan, they would indirectly aid the Uyghurs. And China has a Uyghur problem like we have a problem in Kashmir. Next is Russia. Russia also has, interest in a way that it is 79. It has invaded Afghanistan, and the ex-Soviet countries are bordering Afghanistan. Also, they have a Chechen problem. So if Taliban comes to power, Chechen nationalists would get a boost, and there would be a Islamic insurgency in Russia also. So, and also, there is a growing ISIS threat in Afghanistan. That is why these countries are talking with Taliban, because they believe Taliban is not as bad as ISIS. So Russia has also started talking with Taliban, and they also are involved in building the infrastructure in Afghanistan. They also want a stable Afghanistan led by this government. So this is the main key players in Afghanistan and their kind of stand. Recently, Jalauddin Haqqani, who was a leader of Haqqani network. So these Haqqani network, they are all offshoots of Taliban. Taliban is like a big company, and if one leader did not like Mullah Omar, he created his own organization. So just like that, all these Haqqanis and all, they were all part of Taliban once, but now they have separated. But they have a same objective: overthrowing the US in Afghanistan. And Trump is very much suspecting Pakistan, because everybody knows that Haqqanis, they are based in border region of Afghanistan and Pakistan, and Pakistan ISI supports Haqqanis because Haqqanis weaken the government in Afghanistan and they strengthen the Taliban. So that is why Trump has again alleged that Haqqani network would be over in one day if Pakistan stops supporting the Haqqanis. So this is the small story of Afghanistan. When you read, because see, ultimately my aim is that your basics should be very clear, so that when you read anything, you understand that. You understand the problem. You don't mug the things. You understand the kind of concept. Let's move to the next issue, which is Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana. So why this was in news? Because recently government has announced a new operational guidelines for Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana, and also there have been a number of op-eds which have a number of reports which came out which shows that this scheme is not actually working on the ground. So let's understand what are the key features and advantages of the scheme. First is low premium. These are key features and also the advantage. So you have to pay 1.5% premium for Kharif crop, 2% for Rabi, and 5% for horticulture crops. And this is this is very less compared to the premium we paid in the earlier insurance schemes. Next is there is no capping. So earlier there used to be cap that the center can only compensate this amount of money. But now there's after the farmer has paid premium, if the loss is of 1 lakh or 2 lakh or 3 lakh, it doesn't matter. The center will bear or the insurance company will bear the rest of the cost, and the center will give subsidy for that. Next is, and very important, is use of technology. So in the earlier schemes, sample cutting method was used. I will explain it in the next part. This scheme, at least in mandate, it says that it will use remote sensing, drones, smartphones to assess the damage, and based on that assessment, the insurance amount will be released. Also, it has provision for localized risk. So another unique feature of this for this insurance scheme will be that it will provide localized risk coverage and has added a number of natural calamities. So if there will be seasonal rains and if the crops will be destroyed in seasonal rains, it has a provision for insurance. In the earlier scheme, only the cyclone, if a cyclone is affecting an area, only in that case you would get compensation. But under this scheme, there is a insurance for localized rains, for hailstorms, for other kind of losses. Now let's look at the drawbacks of this scheme. And these drawbacks are not in the scheme, but after 2 years of functioning, these drawbacks have came out in open. First is that there is outdated method of crop loss assessment. So while in theory, in theory it is said that this scheme would use technology to assess the loss, but that's not happening in the ground. In the ground, the method being used is the crop cutting experiment method, CCE. According to this method, so government will decide, okay, these in this area, I will grow some sample crops to understand the yield, and based on that I will give compensation to the farmer. So suppose in X region there is, the farmers will be given insurance. So what government would do is, government would do a sample experiment, which is, it will take a small land, it will grow kind of crops there, and the yield, based on the yield we get from that crop, center will decide that if there is a damage to the crop in future, this will be the amount which will be released to the farmer. Now this is an outdated method, and there are so many factors and because of this outdated method, the farmers are not provided with enough insurance. I mean, if they have a loss of 1 lakh, they are provided with 50,000 rupees. That is happening because of unscientific assessment of the loss. And also this requires a lot of manpower, a lot of land, lot of free land, lot of human resources. So this is also a cost. Second drawback or second challenges in its functioning is inadequate and delayed claim payment. So according to the stats, in 2016, the insurance companies collected around 22,180 crores, and in 2017 and 18 they have covered, or they have collected 24,000 crores, but the total insurance amount they dispersed for claims was 12,000 crores in the first year and just 400 crores in the next year. So insurance companies are playing a lot of fraud. They're not accepting that this much damage has happened. They are, in the first case, they are not even recognizing that damage has taken place. So that is, that is leading to delayed payment. The farmers have nothing to do, and they have nowhere to go. Next is that in this scheme there is only a coverage for loany farmers. Which means if you take loan from the bank, you are automatically given this Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana. But if you don't take loan from formal sectors, then you have to reach out to the insurance company to get yourself insured. Now there is so much illiteracy, there is so much lack of awareness that only 5%, according to estimates, that just 5% of the non-loany farmers have taken this Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana insurance. So most of the farmers in India have not taken loan from the formal sector. So they are outside the ambit of the Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana. Next is there is poor capacity to deliver, which means that the insurance companies are not doing anything to establish some infrastructure in the villages about the office. It is doing nothing to ensure that there is enough awareness created among the farmers about the insurance scheme. So there is no direct linkages of insurance company and the farmer. There is always a middleman in between. So all these factors are leading to limited effect, or all these factors are leading to limited effectiveness of this Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana. Now let's look at what are the steps needed to improve, or what are the steps or what are the solutions provided by the experts on revamping this scheme. First is use of technology. So this was actually mandated in the original thing, but it did not implement it on ground. So they should be use of big data. They should be use of remote sensing, smartphones. Now every farmer has smartphones, so we can use that to assess the crop damage and ensure timely payment. Also, you know, there should be universal and free coverage for all the small holders, for all the small and marginal farmers. So, according to many experts, that if we want to increase the ambit of this insurance, if we want to have an impact on ground, what we can do is that out of 14 crore farmers, 12 crores are small and marginal farmers. So let's let them enter the insurance free of cost, and they will be universal. So every small and marginal farmer is directly enrolled in the scheme. From the medium and large landowners, we can collect premium, and this premium could be high premium, could be 5%. Rather than paying 1%, it could be 5%. And from that premium, the insurance company will have enough money to compensate each and every farmer for the loss. So this is actually why are we also giving big subsidies to the big farmers. There is no need for that. So what we can do is that we can provide free insurance to the small and marginal farmers, and we can charge higher premium costs from the rich farmers, and using that we can kind of cross subsidize. Next is there should be an improved and transparent insurance scheme design. So this means that there should be a database. There should be a central database which should be there, and in that database, each and every farmer should be maintained. That they X farmer, Y farmer, Z farmer. X farmer has paid premium, and now that he's paid premium, if there is any loss, and after that there will be 3-4 columns: premiums, claims, payment. So X farmer, he has paid the premium, now he has faced the loss, so he has claimed, and whether the payment has been released or not. After the payment would be released, the state would compensate the insurance company. अभी प्रॉब्लम क्या हो रही है? The problem that is happening is that the insurance companies get very easily paid from by the government, and since they easily get paid by the government without showing whether they have actually paid the compensation to the farmer or not, so they are involved in lots of mismanagement and mishandling. So if this will be the case, where there would be a centralized data bank which will be there, and after it is filled there that the payment has been received by the farmers, the state would provide subsidy or compensation to the insurance company, then it will incentivize the insurance company to pay the farmer as soon as possible, because it knows that if it will not show the receipt that the payment has been done to the farmers, the state will not provide him with the subsidy. Right, so that will ensure that insurance company will pay or insurance company will not delay the payment of the compensation. Next is there is also monitoring which is required. So there should be an independent body, just like Ayushman Bharat scheme, independent body which should be established in Ministry of Agriculture, which should have members from central, state, agriculture officers, scientists, and they kind of monitor the implementation of scheme on the ground. So these are the steps which have been recommended. There has been some more insurance thing which has been CSC has given some more kind of recommendations. You can read it in the notes. It is given. It is very simple, so I don't need to explain that. They have given so many recommendations. Now, why we are discussing this topic? Because, as I've told, that new operational guidelines for Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima has been released. So, first is that there will be a compensation for delay in payment. Which means that if the insurance company delays 2 months more than the prescribed time limit, then they will have to pay 12% interest rate to the farmers for every delay. And if the state does not release the fund on time to the insurance company, the subsidy, then the state will have to pay 12% interest rate to the insurance company. Also, there has been a standard operating procedure which has been released, in which if insurance company will not be able to meet the standards, then he will have to exit from this scheme. Next step which the government has taken is ensuring the horticulture crop. So perennial horticulture crops like raspberry and all, they have also been included. And also there has been now, under the new kind of revamp scheme, attack by wildlife, they have also been covered within the ambit of the scheme. Till now, attack by wildlife was not covered within the ambit of the scheme. Now attack by wildlife will also be a kind of concern. Third is with respect to ensuring non-loany farmers. So now insurance companies have been given targeted at least 10% more non-loany farmers should be enrolled in the scheme in next year. So they have to mandatory spend 0.5% premium. So if they receive 100 crore premium, 0.5% of it, which means 50 lakhs of this premium, the insurance company will have to spend on increasing awareness about the scheme. So these are the new operational guidelines for the Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana. Let's move to the next issue, which is NRI bonds. So recently the RBI is thinking, the government and the RBI is thinking that they will issue NRI bonds to stop the free fall of rupees. So what is a NRI bond? NRI bond is actually a specific bond which is in which only the NRIs who is an NRI who stays more than 183 days abroad. So these NRIs only they can invest in that bond, and and when they will invest in dollars. So we will get more dollars. Once we will get more dollars, there will be more inflow of dollars, and that will help reduce the fall of rupee. So problem in India is that there have been 2-3 main reasons why rupee has been falling. One is the Turkey crisis, right? Iran and US crisis. And second is that our trade, we are having this trade deficit. And third is that there has been capital outflow from India. So foreign investors are taking money out of India. So a good way to compensate for the capital outflow would be NRI bonds. And why NRIs would be interested in buying the bonds? Because they will get higher returns. So they have two options. One is to invest in US Treasury bills and get very low returns. And second is to invest in NRI bonds and get higher returns. So we have tried this NRI bond thing in 2013 when when rupee fell to 68. Then Rajan introduced this NRI bonds and the rupee again fell back to 56. So experts are saying that if you do that, we will again have to, or again the free fall of rupee would be stopped. And if we issue NRI bond to the limit of 30-35 crores, the rupee would fall back to 65, which is the good value for rupee. So what are the drawbacks of NRI bonds? NRI bonds have certain drawbacks. First drawback is that they have to be repaid. They have to be repaid back. So after 2-3 years, it would be a burden on India when they will be repaid. There would again be an outflow of dollar from India. First concern is that they have to be repaid. So short-term, benefit can give us long-term loss. Second is that we need to give higher interest rate to attract that, because the interest rate in Western countries have been really high these days. So we have to give very attractive interest rate to attract them. That will increase the cost for the government, right? That will increase the loan amount for the government. And third is that the experts are saying that this fall in rupee is temporarily because of external factors. So maybe after 3-4 months, things will go again to the normal. And we will issue this bond also, we'll take debt also. And if after 3-4 months, rupee will fall to 65 rupees without the help of these bonds, then this is an unnecessary burden that we are taking. So experts are saying that let's wait for 3-4 months. If things don't get good in 3-4 months, then we should issue NRI bonds. We should not issue NRI bonds now, because if things got okay in 3-4 months, then we don't require NRI bonds. The rupee will automatically shift back to 65. So we issue NRI bonds and take debt. There is no kind of rationale for that. So therefore, the experts have a mixed kind of view regarding NRI bonds. Some say that we should go for it. Some say that we should wait and watch right now. So this ends the 6th issue, which is NRI bonds. Let's move to the next issue, which is manual scavenging problem. And this was in news because recently you must have heard in the news that a lot of manual scavengers have died cleaning the septic tanks manually. So that is why this problem was, the number of op-eds have been written on this problem, and that is why it is important for the exam. So what is the what do you mean by manual scavenging? It means cleaning, or it means cleaning, carrying and disposing or handling of in any manner human excreta from dry latrines and sewers. What do we mean by dry latrines? Dry latrines are those latrines in which there is no provision of flush and water supply. So it has to be manually cleaned, and these are the people who manually clean it from centuries. So naturally in India, this is also, it's not just the manual scavenging problem, it's related to caste. So you will not see any upper caste person doing this job. It is only the Valmiki Samaj which do that job. And Valmiki Samaj belongs to the scheduled caste category. And the reason why they have been discriminated is because they are involved in the occupation of manual scavenging. Therefore they are considered unclean by the so-called upper caste people. So what is the present status of manual scavenging in India? So according to the unofficial experts, there are 12 lakh manual scavengers in India. And according to Rajya Sabha report, 22,000 manual scavengers every year die. So it's a big problem. And only 13 or only 12 states have been able to identify manual scavengers. Problem is that the DM, they actually give certification that there is no manual scavenger in our district without even looking into the matter, without even evaluating whether somebody is working as a manual scavenger or not. So there are at least 22 states which have declared that we have zero manual scavenger, and there have been 2.6 million dry latrines in India. So what are the provisions against manual scavenging in India? First is, in 1993, India banned the employment of manual scavengers. In 2013, government passed what you call as Manual Scavengers and their Rehabilitation Act. And this act has following provision. Firstly, it says that no person, local authority or agency should engage any person as in the job of manual scavenging. Second key provision of this act is that they will have to be rehabilitated. So all the manual scavengers, we have to be rehabilitated, and they have to be trained in a different occupation. Thirdly, a violation can be punished by 2 years of jail. Also, the local authority and the DM have been given responsibility with respect to destroying all the insanitary latrines. Also, the DM have to do survey in their area about calculating how many manual scavengers are still there. So this act was a very comprehensive act, but it is not implemented on ground. Also, we have a national commission for Safai Karamcharis to look into the problems of these workers. So why does this problem or why does this practice still exist? Firstly, no alternative occupation. So the manual scavengers feel that because this job they have been doing from centuries, they are trained in it. They think that first of all, there's a delay in release of money for rehabilitation. Secondly, these manual scavengers don't want to train themselves. They believe that they have been doing this job from so many years. They are well trained in that. They will train, they will go for a different job, again have to start from scratch. So therefore, they themselves are not leaving the job because they don't find any alternative occupation. Second reason is presence of insanitary latrine. So till the time we have insanitary latrine, that have to be cleaned manually. Also, there has been disinterest of state government. So the state governments are not keen on demolishing the insanitary latrines, because insanitary latrines, they somehow there is a local community reaction against that we want the latrine to be there, because otherwise where will our people go? Next is budget crunch. So central government has reduced the fund allocation for rehabilitation of manual scavenging from 448 crores to 5 crores in 2017 and 18. So naturally, when there are no funds, when the fund has been reduced, there is delay in payment of rehabilitation. So a manual scavenger, if you will not provide him alternative funds for rehabilitation, for finding a new occupation, he will continue to engage in the same occupation. At least he will be able to feed his kids. He will not wait for you and think that okay, after 6 months you will give me compensation, and by that time what will happen? Because these people get so much low salary that if they don't work for 1 month, their kids will starve. Next is there is no administrative accountability. So the act says that it is a responsibility of DM to ensure that there is no nobody is doing, or there is no dry latrines in their zone, and there is no one who is working as manual scavenger in the zone. But the act does not say what will happen to them if they fail to do their duty. That is not there in the act. So they are also lacks. Who wants to do a survey, go to the road in the sun? They think, oh, no, it's zero. No, and there is no problem of manual scavenging in our district. But they are saying lies, and they are saying lies just because of lack of accountability, because they cannot be punished for saying lies. That is why they are very soft on this practice. And lastly, there is SBA, Swachh Bharat, and there is also, manual scavenging is cheaper. So rather than using mechanized pumps to clean, you have to buy that. The contractors, they want to earn the maximum profit. Therefore, rather than buying these instruments, they pay some salary to these manual scavengers to clean it manually. That is more cheaper to them because the labor is so cheap in India. So they are also, they're not interested in eradicating this practice. And last is Swachh Bharat Abhiyan. So Swachh Bharat Abhiyan has led to creation of a lot of septic tanks, but it has not given enough funds for buying mechanized instruments to clean the fund. So more and more septic tanks are being created, and there are not enough instrument to clean that automatically. Therefore, manual scavengers have to be employed to clean these septic tanks. So what should be done? Actually, there is a documentary on YouTube on manual scavenging. You should see that. If you have little bit of empathy, if you have a feeling of empathy towards you, you will start crying if you will see that. It's really disastrous. So first of all, we should ensure that there is a community movement against that. Just like we had community movement against Swachh Bharat, like Swachh Bharat is a priority, and I think Swachh Bharat is a quite successful scheme. If you can, engage community in that, you can also engage community in this. So first job is to engage community. Give more government ads, engage celebrities, make a people's movement, grassroots movement, appoint grassroots workers which ensure that this practice is not done, right? Second is we can involve NGOs in this field. They can, make people vigilant against this inhuman practice. Also, alternate means of employment needs to be generated. See, nobody wants to clean the shit, right? That's the worst job in the world. So you have to give them not just fund, give them adequate training so that their kids are not engaged in this job. Also, there should be compensation given to those who die. Also, administrative accountability needs to be fixed. Because ultimately, if you claim, you certify there is no manual scavenger, if there is manual scavenger, you will be suspended. It should be like that. And if a contractor is employing these manual scavenger, he should be tried. He should be jailed. So this ends the 7th issue. Let's move to the next issue, which is triple talaq is a criminal offense. So this is recently an ordinance has been passed by the government, which declared triple talaq to be a criminal offence. And why? Let us first understand the key features, and then they will analyze why it was brought. Firstly, it said that it makes instant triple talaq illegal and void, and they will be jailed for 3 years for a husband practicing this instant triple talaq. Also, the ordinance makes the offense cognizable only if the woman or any of her relatives file a case in the police station. Thirdly, the offense has been made compoundable. Which means that before arrest, there will be opportunity given to husband and wife to sort out the matter outside the court. if they can sort out the matter outside the court, the husband will not be arrested. Also, it provides that a magistrate may grant a bail to a husband after hearing the wife. So see, there was the earlier draft bill which was brought, and those draft bill was very, very harsh towards the men. So there were talks of this being misused. Therefore, this ordinance, the government has diluted some of the harsh provisions, and there is less scope for the misuse. So why do we needed this ordinance? Firstly, 201 cases has been reported from across the country after Supreme Court banned triple talaq. So Supreme Court decision failed to have a deterrence effect on triple talaq, practice of triple talaq. Therefore, government thought that we need to step in and criminalize the offense so that nobody can do that. Also, triple talaq adversely impact the rights of the woman to right to life and dignity. It is also against the constitutional principles of gender equality and secularism. See, problem is that it is actually, it is used very less frequently, but it's kind of a trump card which the husband has. It keeps the woman on its toes, because the woman always thinks that if I'll not keep my husband happy, if I'll not agree to his terms and conditions, he can always give me anytime he will say talak talak talak, and he will divorce me. Where will I go? So ultimately, it has a psychological effect on the woman, and this provision somehow makes her submissive to her husband. So, what are the arguments against criminalization? So, first of all, marriage and divorce, they are civil matters. So, first argument against this is criminalizing a civil matter. When marriage and divorce is a civil matter, the punishment should also be in civil nature. How can you criminalize a civil matter? How can you send somebody jail for civil matter? This goes against the very ambit or very foundation of jurisprudence. Right, so this is the biggest argument against criminalization. Second argument is that Supreme Court never said criminalize triple talaq. It is just said it is invalid, it is banned. It has never said that you have to criminalize that. You have to send people to jail. Also, there is what you call as consistency problem in that, because you say that the husband will have to pay for the maintenance if he gives triple talaq, and you send him to jail. How will he pay for the maintenance when he will be in jail? Right, he will not be able to pay if he will be in jail. And fourthly, it could be ground for harassment of husband. Like the dowry law, like the SC/ST Act. And lastly, why the need for ordinance when we have a session in next few months? We could have waited. This is not the most urgent. I mean, people have criticized the audience route. I mean, this is not the most serious matter facing the country. You have so many other things to do. And ultimately, it's all politics, right? Nobody wants to empower Muslim women, to be really honest. Neither the Maulvis, nor the BJP, nor the Congress, nor any other political party. All of them want the vote. The BJP wants the votes of Muslim women, they want the vote of Hindus, that's why they're using it. Congress has no stand because it wants the vote of both Hindus and Muslims. The Maulvis, as you know, that they are Maulvis. Everybody is playing kind of politics in that. When we have issues, so many other issues, our ordinance for triple talaq is the least thing which should be in the mind of the government. Let's move to the next issue, which is also a very, very important issue. This is that Bangladesh gives port access to India. So Bangladesh to provide port access to India, and recently Sheikh Hasina has approved a draft agreement allowing India to use its Chittagong and Mongla ports to transport cargo and to and from its northeastern states. So under this agreement, India can transport goods as per capacity of 2 seaports, and only Bangladeshi vehicles will be used for transportation of goods within its territory, and Indian goods can be transported through 4 entry points. This agreement will be effective for 5 years and it can be extended for another 5 years automatically, and anyone can cancel the agreement within 6 months of giving prior notice. So these technical details you can read it from the notes. My job is to tell you the economic and strategic impact of this move, which is great. So let's draw a map. This is not so good map of Bangladesh. Somewhere here is Chittagong port and somewhere here is Mongla port. This is West Bengal. Somewhere here is Tripura. And somewhere here is Mizoram. At the top of it is Meghalaya. Right now, this is Kolkata. And up above this is China and Bhutan. So right now, if anything wants to transfer to the northeast, or the nearest port Tripura, Mizoram, and Meghalaya have is Kolkata. So if they produce anything through mainland India, if they want to come, they have to cross this chicken neck, and the goods are then sent to Kolkata for export. Same goes with from Kolkata. From Kolkata, if anything has to be have to be sent to these 3-4 states, it has to travel the whole this distance. There is what you call as chicken neck, a narrow region separating India, China, and Bhutan. Whole distance have to be traveled. See, before independence, things were very smooth. You just had to travel here. It was not just 500 kilometers, 400, 500 kilometers. But now the distance is 1650 kilometers. 1650 kilometers is the nearest port for Tripura, Mizoram, and Meghalaya. That's a big distance. The road is really bad. It's not very developed. It takes 4 days to reach any good from Kolkata to Northeast. This is one of the reasons behind lack of development of Northeast. Now, after this agreement, the distance would be, the nearest port would be just 200 kilometers. Because this is Tripura, and there you have Agartala at the border, there is Akura at Bangladesh. A good could be transferred to Akura. From Akura to railway line, it can be transferred to Chittagong, and it can be transferred to anywhere in the world. Nearest port access for them. Same can take place with India. If anything wants to, if Kolkata from Goa anything wants to be sent to Tripura, we will go to Chittagong by ship, and from Chittagong through Akura, the good through railway, it will be transferred to Tripura, Mizoram, anywhere they want. Right. So first of, and the most the most important benefit of this is port access. Port access would boost the economy of Northeast. They would not be isolated again. They can export their good throughout anywhere in the world, and anything produced in India could reach, anything produced in mainland India could reach to these northeastern countries in a very cheaper and a smoother and a faster way. Also, second is strategic. So which is risk of chicken neck. So right now we have this small narrow area from which a good is transferred to Northeast. Suppose India and China has bad relations, and China kind of captures that. Now the connect of India with Northeast, mainland India with Northeast will get over. And they would be complete blockade in these areas. They will kind of starve. So we need alternative routes. If tomorrow there is some problem in chicken neck, we can always transfer our goods through the Chittagong port and through Mongla port region. Right. So it is an alternative to the chicken neck. And thirdly, it could lead to food movement. So as you know that Bangladesh is very fertile land. It's a delta area. It produces a lot of rice. Now, these areas get rice from Kolkata, traveling for so long. From Bangladesh rice fields, it can be easily transferred because the land is plain. One more advantage is the land here is completely plain. Here it's rocky and hilly. So food problem in Northeast could be solved if we through this agreement. So these are the important points why this is a very significant move for India. Let's move to the last main issue of this week, which is sexual offender registry. National Registry of Sexual Offender. So this is recently has been released by the government, and it will be a national level data bank where everybody who has done some sexual offense, their name and all their details would be maintained in that register, or what you call as data, kind of a platform. So who is the nodal agency? It is NCRB, or National Crime Record Bureau. And the offenders, so there will be a data storage, and the offenders data would be stored for 15 years, 25 years, and throughout life, based on the risk factors. So those who are involved in menial crimes like stalking or probably eve teasing, they would be, their diary would be maintained, or their data would be maintained for 15 years. People who are from low risk area, people who will be in moderate risk, their data would be for 25 years. And those with high risk, there will be for lifetime, the data would be maintained. So this National Sex Offenders Registry would contain the names, photographs, residential address, fingerprints, DNA samples, Aadhaar and PAN number of these convicted sexual offenders, and it will contain more than 4.5 lakh cases, including profiles of first time and repeat offenders. So why do we need this sexual offense registry? Because there has been increase in sexual crimes in India. Recently, we have this Kathua rape, which shook the conscience of the people, and government was forced to, bring a new ordinance under which, if somebody gang rapes a 12-year below girl, he would be given a death penalty. Also, there has been the reports say that in India, a child is sexually abused every 5 minutes. Also, according to NCRB, there has been a 12% rise in rapes in 2016. Overall crime against women have also increased. So what will be the benefit for India, or what you call a significance of this registry? First significance would be that it would have a deterrent effect. On those people who undergo multiple sexual, or who have been involved in multiple sexual crimes. Problem is that there is no kind of registry in which we can have say, okay, this man was involved in eve teasing 2 years ago, he's a serial offender. Since the people know, the criminals know that, okay, once I have done, I am released, now nobody knows that I have done this 2 years back, so I will again do it. Right. So once he knows that there is full data, full kind of list of me, everything about me is known by the police, and if I do it again, I will be given more harsh penalty. So this would have a deterrent effect on him in committing further sexual crimes. Also, with this, India has become 9th country in the world to have it. Also, it will help the law enforcement agencies to identify the repeated offenders and counsel him, because sometimes it's psychological for disorder. What are the challenges? First major challenge is that it can lead to public stigmatization. which means those who are involved in crime 15 years back, they still don't get jobs, they still are not allowed public housing, there has been restriction on their movement. So that could, if somebody wants to live a good life, if somebody has done something in his early life and he wants to go back to normal life, it disincentivizes them to do that, right? Therefore it increases the chance for repeated offenses. Also, the database is graded based on heinous nature of crime. But according to psychologists, this is not the right way, because you can't decide the risk of the person from the last crime. In some countries like in US and UK, there is periodic psychological or periodic psychiatric evaluation, and through that they kind of decide that whether he is in low risk or a moderate risk or a high risk person. Based on the previous crime, I don't think, if somebody has committed a crime 15 years back, now he's living a life, a very family life, it's very, he should be in low risk, but he will be kept at high risk because he has committed a crime 15 years ago. So through psychological evaluation, we should see that whether that person is low risk or high risk. So this ends the mains issues of the week. Let's now come to the prelims issues of the week. First is All India Pension Adalat. So this has been recently introduced, and the nodal agency is the Ministry of Personal Public Grievance and Pension. And they have been set with the objective of bringing on a common table the aggregate pensioner, the concerned department, the bank, so that the cases are settled smoothly, fastly, and within the framework of extant rules. Other than that, the ministry has also released what we call as pre-retirement counseling, which is not important for your exam, and you can read it from the notes. Next is e-Sahaj portal. So if you start a new project and that project is in an area where there's some security problem, you need security clearance also from Ministry of Home Affairs. And it's generally a very tedious process. You have to give bribes, you have to wait. It is pending 6 months, 8 months without Ministry of Home Affairs taking any decision. And this affects the ease of doing business in India. So e-Sahaj portal has been launched, and in this portal, what you can do is that you can just upload all the documents related to the project online. The Ministry of Home Affairs officer will see that and he will give the approval online. If he wants some further documents, he will ask for that. You have to upload more documents. If he feels that there is a security problem, he will give that. He will say, no, there is a security problem here, so I can't approve the project. But all of them will be done online, without you visiting the office. So it will reduce the scope for corruption, first of all. Secondly, all the process would be time bound. So there will be time bound, kind of clearance. Plus, Once you upload, you can track the status of your application, where it has reached, whether it has seen or it has been evaluated by the officers or not. All of them you can track online. So idea behind this is to improve what you call as ease of doing business. Next is Atal Bimat Vyakti Kalyar Yojana. Most of the pre-topics will be covered by Rakesh. So Atal Bimat Vyakti Kalyar Yojana, ESI has rolled out this scheme for providing unemployment allowance to workers who are rendered jobless because of change in employment pattern. So this is actually it means that when you are working, you contribute something from in that account, and once you are thrown out of job, once you are fired, they will pay you for next 3, 4, 6 months. This is the whole idea behind the scheme. So this is basically for those people who are in temporary or contractual job where there is no safety of job. So these people can pay some part of their salary, they can contribute some part of their salary in this, and then when they will go jobless, they will be given this. Next is that UNDP has a report lauded India's strides in reducing poverty in past decade. So according to the UNDP report, India reduced the multi-dimensional poverty index from 54% in 2005 to 27% by 2015. Within 10 years, India has reduced its poverty by half, and the report said that nowhere in no country in the world so many people have been uplifted out of poverty within this short period. And to be really honest, we should give the claim to Dr. Saab, Dr. Manmohan Singh, because the right-based approach of the government, where you were provided with right to work, right to education, right to food, right to information, that right-based approach, and plus there was high economic growth, all of the factors contributed towards reducing poverty in last 1 decade. Ultimately, you have to give. And then there's PDS, all of them, midday meal scheme, National Health Mission, all these created a kind of a base for reducing poverty in last 1 decade. Next is cybercrime prevention against women and child portal. So this has been released by Home Ministry, not by Ministry of Child. Ministry of Home Affairs has released that. According to this portal, if somebody searches the net, if it sees a child pornography or the videos of gang rape or rapes, anything which affects the dignity of women, then it can report to the government that, see, there is a link here. So, and it can also track that what action has been taken on its report. And based on that, the government will remove that content and it will take action against any portal which is uploading these kinds of videos. So this ends the prelims issues of the week, and we will be meeting next week. Thank you.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon on the YouTube app and never miss another update from Civil State.